Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to Good Afternoon Michigan Football here on this Tuesday. And normally we're coming to you 3 times a week during the summer, but yesterday, Mother Nature intervening in the show as there was no power in the village of Dexter, the surrounding areas, and so we were shut down, but we are here on a Tuesday, excited to be here, ready to go. I'm really excited. Last night I was listening to a college football pod, and I was kind of nodding off. They were talking about name, image, and likeness, and I was, hey, I was listening though, and then they said, how about we get an early pick for the college football semifinals? These are national guys, and again, I was kind of like, it's probably there were 3 guys, and the first 2 had Michigan in their Final Four. We're going to talk a little bit about the football team and just what folks are saying about them. We've got a lot going on with recruiting. If you like recruiting, then this is the place to be. And now, if you are not the biggest recruiting fans, we still are going to talk about the team and the outlook. So I think there's a little bit something for everyone today. It's great that you found us here. And I didn't say anything about coming on a Tuesday after yesterday, but as Richard, is pointing out, you're trying to keep everybody on their toes. And yeah, that's part of it. And if you're watching this live, you can always put in a suggestion. You can make a comment on what we're talking about, and we'll read it in real time as things are going on. Anything at all. I mean, you got a question that you're like, man, nobody answers this question. I want to know this. Ask it, and I'll do my best to answer it. That's the way it goes. Speaking of keeping people on their toes, Jason keeps people on their toes. Is that he's always changing up his avatar. Sometimes, it's a picture of Michigan. Other times it's a real picture of him. This time, he's got a nice little JP there. So I like it. He is keeping me on my toes. Scott saying that Michigan has had a couple big misses. We need to land Beasley. Yeah, I mean, you can say anything you want about recruiting. I'm going to go through a bunch of the names and timelines and things that are going on here, but for Michigan, I don't always want to just sit back and say, maybe actually I would like it. I'm really enjoying it. Like, kind of sitting back. I feel like everything is going great with Michigan, and that includes recruiting. Yeah, you're going to miss out on a guy or two, even though you've got the experts. Josh Henschke and Trevor Micheal are out there, Seth Berry, all from the Maize and Blue Review. These guys are working. They're detectives. They're on their phone. They're putting their future casts out and everything else. And a lot of other times they're lining up with what some of the other gurus are saying. And so everybody gets excited, like they're going to get this guy. And then all of a sudden, like, whoa, you get the rug pulled out from under you. But just like the Michigan football team this year and the program as a whole, recruiting right now is going great. So, I don't know about we need to land. I mean, I think it would be, Scott, I'll just adjust a little bit. It would be nice to land Beasley. And they had a couple misses, but they're sitting pretty right now. And with that, let's just say, like I mentioned the trio with the Maize and Blue Review. And these guys, you want to know the hot list, where everybody's trending, what's going on with the latest? Well, then you join up the Maize and Blue Review today, and all of this. And if you have a question, you post it, and then it gets answered. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Love to see you over there on the posting board and all that. It is, it's, you like Michigan, you like the Maize and Blue Review. Now, over the weekend, Michigan landed their 23rd commitment of the 24 class, and it was a defensive end in Dominic Nichols, a defensive lineman and edge out of Maryland, a 3-star, 6'5", 245. And, Michigan, what they have done the last 2 years, switching up this defense, that edge position, I think it starts. I was going to say it starts with Ajabo and Hutchinson, but could he pay before him? I mean, that's and you can you kind of go back even a little bit farther, but they changed up the defense. If it's no surprise that a defensive end edge player would look at Michigan and say, that's where I want to play. So you welcome in a player like Dominic Nichols out of Maryland. Remember Devon Baxter, who was also a defensive lineman. He committed a few days before Nichols, and it puts Michigan at number 2 in the class of 24. If Michigan was done, I don't think they are. I don't think anybody would predict that they're done sitting here at 23. They might lose some, but I think they'll flip some, and then they'll probably add some. Who knows? 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Your guess is probably as good, close as good as my guess. But even if they didn't get anybody else, I think if they just shut everything down right now, I think they could be sitting here and you're talking about a top 10 class without even, you never want to do that. You're never just going to shut everything down. Hey, we're good. Harbaugh gets on the phone and says, you know what, guys, let's just shut it all down. We're all good. Everybody just vacation. No, it's constant. They wake up, they're always going after somebody else, and then they have to try to keep the guys that they have. But the point for all of us who we don't have to wake up every day and make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's when it comes to the recruits that are going to Michigan, the staff does. And they'll do that. They'll do their diligence and right up till signing day and keeping these guys and everything else. And but again, to underscore the point is that Michigan being a top 10 consensus across the board, whoever you like to follow, this is rivals.com. We're presented by rivals.com. So I'll say, Michigan landing in the top 10 for Rivals is perfectly acceptable. Even if you're the hardest driving, crazed Michigan man out there, you want a championship, you want a recruiting championship, you still take a step back and say, things are going really well here. Things are going good. Let's do it, So, Scott, well, I see what you're saying. I am just, I think that things are going great here for Michigan. Always looking for new folks. Here's Jason, the old football and hockey guy. And how about Robert? Hello from San Diego. I love San Diego, Robert. I've had a new experience over the last 2 weeks. I always say that I've always said this. I was telling my wife, I love sunsets. And over the last few years, I haven't gone out and really enjoyed any sunsets. I can't really surrounded by the woods. I don't get a great sunset here. I'd have to go drive somewhere and, take in a sunset. And then we were talking about sunsets, and my favorite one was in San Diego. I could, there's a lot of great ones, but, with everything that was going on, San Diego. I say the last 2 weeks, instead of sun sets, I've been going with sunrises, which is a complete flip for me. It's nice, but it's nice to hear from somebody from San Diego. Does Dexter have electrical service nowadays? When you live with big trees everywhere in the Peach Mountain, when it storms and it rains and there's limbs coming down, it happens, man. The wind it was blowing though in defense of Dexter. The wind really was howling, and it was pretty crazy weather. But it's been a little bit ridiculous over this past year or two. That's true. Jason says he is on recruiting. No, I know you are on to every move, every player. If this guy's not coming, you've got the backup plan for another 2. And if those 2, you're ready. And if all of those things fail, Jason, you're ready. You're already looking at 25 and 26 too. So, I mean, if Jason, if you are all in on the 25s and 26s like we are with the 24s, I mean, you're ahead of the game. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Here's a little Beasley talk. Beasley talk. Here's a little Scott. Now there's two Scotts. You got a corner and you got a defensive tackle. I think both of the Scotts would look great in the Maize and Blue. Justin Scott, the defensive tackle from Chicago. Yeah, I think, Michigan, Notre Dame, that one's going to play out. Michigan did a good job when Scott was in. Now, is it Aaron Scott Jr., the corner? I saw Charles Woodson was tweeting at him or retweeting a picture of him in the Maize and Blue. He is a possibility. Now, I saw Josh Henschke was putting his temperature gauges and stuff out, and there were some like, this guy's super hot, boiling, fire, all of these. And then I was like, well, where's Scott, the corner from Ohio? And he was more down the list of, the temperature gauge. So I still think it's a possibility, Richard. It just doesn't look like it's Aaron Scott. What did I call him? I think that's what I call him. I might have called him something else. Yeah. How am I feeling? I'm feeling like Michigan's got a shot. Is it a great shot? I think I would put it as a good shot. I think Michigan's got a good shot out there, So that's where I'm at. It's tough, when you got those Ohio kids, that and what is going on. Now, people keep mentioning Jeremiah Beasley. Why? Why are people talking about Beasley so much? Well, because he's announcing on Thursday, and Michigan is in a great spot. Now, I believe Beasley is making the rounds down, is it Columbia? And down in Missouri. He had planned a visit to Missouri. He did not shut that down, so he's either making that trip, or still going to make that trip down to Missouri. Show me state. I don't know. He's down there, but people feel pretty good about Beasley, and I think if you're a Michigan fan, you should feel pretty good about Beasley as well. We are going to follow this recruitment, and what would just be great for Beasley would be if he decided to announce during the 1:00 hour. That's what I would be taking a look at. Jason Lang, all of the recruits timelines out here. He's got Polly talking about USC. I thought Penn State was there, so that would be a little bit different. I didn't know that. Rudolph is on that list. I've got him in a slide here. Aaron Scott, yeah, the right on July 4th, huh? I thought it was the July 4th weekend. And then you've got Jordan Shipp, who is at Providence Day, one of those wide receivers. So, Richard talking about being out of spaces for this class. No, I don't think there's any such thing as being out of spaces anymore. The way that recruiting goes now, you still have the pandemic year, which just pops up all of a sudden. You guys are like, hey, here's a 7th year. Here's somebody that seems like they've been around 4 or 5 years, and they're a junior. They're saying you get these extra years, and then with the way that the transfer portal is going, you can teams are counting on a half dozen to a dozen players just hitting the portal. So then you can sign, you call it oversigning, call it whatever you want. But it used to be like, I don't know, how many scholarships do you have? You start counting up the Michigan scholarships, and they should have been done, months ago. I don't know how they have room for all of them. So I think that it might be, it's kind of one of the stories that is out there that you don't care if you're a Michigan fan. You hope they sign 100 more guys. But it's like, if you're counting the players and you're like, wait, this is way over 85. How are they doing this? Maybe it's name, image, and likeness. Whatever the great mystery is, how are they doing? It would be a good question if, I guess Harbaugh doesn't open up for the media at large. So maybe I have to send a message to John Jansen. And maybe Jansen can say, hey, Jim, how are you able to sign so many players? How are you able to go over 85? And it'd be interesting to see what Harbaugh had to say about that. I don't know. That might be a too tough of a question, for John, but it wouldn't hurt for him, And I think John, he may step up to the plate and deliver that question over there. I'll ask him when he gets a chance. So Jason also talking about another offensive lineman. Wesley is talking about Gatlin Bair. Would love to hear you guys chime in about this. I feel like we're losing on Mayo and Childs were huge losses. Bennett Warren is a huge get now. Yeah, I don't think Bennett Warren is a huge get because Michigan has 5 offensive linemen already. So I don't know. Is it a huge get now? I don't see that. I mean, like you if you really want them, okay. Mayo and Childs was a huge loss. There's no way around that. Like you wanted them, Michigan wanted them. Everything looked great. It just kind of was all like Michigan, and then steered over at the last second. All of a sudden, Florida popped up there. So that one is one of those in recruiting that actually happens. Jason throwing a percentage of 72% for Bair coming to Michigan. We will get to him. Joel says he hears that Aaron Scott is a silent commit. Well, if you heard that, then it wouldn't be silent, would you? I don't know. Like I said, I think Michigan has a shot there. I'm just not over here telling you that I would run out and, buy stock or as Jason does on here, put little locks next to it. I don't think Aaron Scott is a lock. Richard says in recruiting, he remembers back in the day being satisfied if Michigan was in the top 6. I don't know. In the Big Ten? Oh, no, you must be talking about nationally. Look, if Michigan finishes, like they finished, 17-18 last year. And, that was a little bit like, name, image, and likeness, I think, had a lot to do with that. And yet, when you look at the players that they were able to get, that you think that were underrated by everybody, that that they pulled in, that if they get a top 10 class, I don't think really it's as much as top 5 sounds a lot better than top 10, and where they're at right now, top 2, that sounds even better. So it's all relative. We've got a pipeline to San Diego. What are you guys doing out there? San Diego, man, I don't know how many days I was there. A couple days, but man, San Diego is awesome. That's it. Ty is in, and he's somebody that checks in every couple months or whatever. Ty 5 is saying we need DBs. I feel like that's the one position we'll be working on late before signing day. I think you're correct about that, Ty, and I think there's a number of guys. There's Aaron Scott. There's a few behind Aaron Scott, right behind him. They might even be that far behind when you look at the rankings. But there's definitely Michigan. We could sit around naming at least 3 or 4 guys that they're in on. Wesley is still talking about Brian Robinson being Michigan bound. I would say maybe. Robinson has had a million chances to commit to the Wolverines. He knows how to get to Ann Arbor, and he doesn't have that. It feels to me, I've said this a long time ago, this is just like, this is me. This is not me, talking to Josh Henschke and Henschke saying, hey, he's waiting for an OSU offer. That's how I felt after he's been up here so much and then he doesn't have the OSU offer and he hasn't committed. That's what it seems like to me, that he is waiting for that. Steven is saying that it's getting closer to kickoff. Yeah, every day, Steven. It's exciting about that. Kevin's talking about Scott being between U of M and Notre Dame. Aaron Scott is between Michigan, Ohio State, and Oregon. Justin Scott, I believe, is between U of M and Notre Dame. So I think you're exactly right. I say a lot of the different names over here, and the Scotts and sometimes the Aarons and the Justins. I might misspeak, and if I do, somebody will check it and clarify it over in what's going on. But so right now, feeling pretty good about Beasley coming up on Thursday. Friday, there is an announcement of a big offensive lineman, Uini, Michael Uini. Now, Michael Uini is a 4-star offensive lineman. Look at this, 6'8", 273 out of Texas. This is a big three here. Georgia, Bama, and Michigan with a Friday announcement. And Josh Hedges feels good about Uini. And so I think that if you're looking to land another big-time offensive lineman, then, Friday is going to be a day that you want to check in and see, because this is something that very well can happen. Is it a little bit scary that Bama and Georgia? Hey, this is the new Michigan. It used to be for 20 straight years, we were all banging our heads about, like, Michigan's got to beat Ohio State. They got to find a way to beat Ohio State. They got to wake up every day and beat Ohio State. And it was true. But now that they've done that, they've got to continue to think about Ohio State. But they are thinking bigger even than Ohio State now. They are thinking about Bama and Georgia. So I just kind of like this, even if the kid ends up picking the Tide or the Dogs. The Wolverines are there now with all of the top schools for the big guys that's coming down for the decisions. This isn't a couple directional schools and Boise and this is Michigan, Alabama, and Georgia. I like that. Michigan with a chance. And like I said, Henschke feels pretty good about Michigan's chances with his offensive lineman who's making his Friday announcement. So Thursday, Beasley, Uini on Friday, and then Saturday. How about another defensive end? Elias Rudolph is making an announcement on Saturday. He is down to apparently 2 schools, Michigan and Pitt. And the Wolverines love their chances here to get the 6'4", 210-pound defensive end out of Deerfield Beach in Florida. He was up recently here in June in Ann Arbor, and Michigan loves their chances. So, Michigan loves their chances. You should love their chances as well. And so you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all of these announcements coming up, and it all sounds pretty good for the Maize and Blue. Will they get all of them? Yes. No, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, they could. They could very well get all 3 of those guys. 2 of the 3, I would feel pretty strongly about. I do. I feel like sitting here that they could get 2 out of 3 for sure. Who's next? Oh, Gatlin Bair. Now, I'm very intrigued about Bair. He is a speed burner, being called the fastest wideout in this class. A 4-star with a big up arrow next to him. He is out of Burley, Idaho. And you're like, well, how many players is Michigan getting out of Idaho? Right. Colston Loveland is from Idaho. So that's one of the things you're thinking, hey, Michigan's got that in with Bair, with Loveland. Now, Bair, while he is in this class, he's going on a mission for 2 years. So he's not going to be playing football. So let's see, 24, 25, 20 to the 26. So this is a player, even if Michigan is able to land him, and somebody was asking about a timeline, I think August. I could be wrong about that. It could have been July, but I thought August he was talking about making a decision. And Jason is right that Bair loved his OV. I saw a picture with Bair and Loveland in the big house. I love these pictures of these guys coming out of the tunnel. They're great photos. Look at that. if you're a Michigan fan, it kind of feels like you would want a picture of yourself like this. But I mean, this is great. You got the sun shining in. You get the field, a little bit of the field. This is just this is a masterpiece. This picture right here. I looked where Burley, Idaho was in relation to Gooding, Idaho. Burley is where Bair is from, and Gooding is where Colston Loveland is from. And these guys are really close. The proximity here, it's about an hour drive. Take a look at some of the images. If you go online, Burley and Gooding, nice area. So, I never really thought about, southern Idaho as a destination, going to check out, but it looked pretty cool there. And, just a little trip down to 86, which I've never said before. Maybe stop at Twin Falls. Sounds like a nice area too. Barely a little halfway through, about a half hour, stop at Twin Falls, and then right up to Gooding. But that's why I think you feel good about Bair in Michigan because of Loveland and his success, and then having somebody, and it's not like he was from up by Canada and Idaho, and that little sliver that sticks up there. It's down in the southern part, in about an hour drive there for those two. Now let's take some feedback on recruiting. That's what I have today about what's going on. There's a lot of guys making their decisions, and then there's probably another 10 players that if we had a hot list that we could name in there after Beasley. Justin Scott is one of them. Aaron Scott is another. A couple corners after them, and a couple linebackers as well. So there you are. Kevin is talking about the defensive tackle. That's it. Let's see. Jason is hearing Justin Scott, the defensive tackle, Michigan and Notre Dame. I think that is accurate, Jason. I think your information is accurate. Notre Dame fans think he's a lean. Notre Dame fans think every player is a lean for them. That's what being a Notre Dame fan is. Here's the approach of a Notre Dame fan. Everybody wants to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to get everyone. That's it. That's the approach when it comes to Notre Dame. Scott says he agrees. Michigan is having a great recruiting class in 24. It still hurts when Bryce West, the number 31 player in the country, and Aaron Childs, the number 59 player in the country, say no. Yeah, it does. And, I mentioned that I was listening to a pod. I'm going to get to that coming up. And these guys were talking about name, image, and likeness, and they were talking about the coach, basketball coach at LSU. Will Wade is his name. And if you followed the saga of Will Wade, before name, image, and likeness, Will Wade, the FBI had a wiretap on Will Wade's phone. And Will Wade was talking about making strong-ass offers and offering money on, they got him. Hook, line, and sinker. I mean, like, you just go and you look at the evidence against Will Wade, and it's like, how is this guy even coaching still? Like, and if this has been going on for, I would say 5 years. It might be a little bit less, but it seems like 5 years. Like, this has all been like, everybody's known that LSU gave money, was offering money, and they got caught red-handed. I mean, blood is dripping down their hands, and Wade's got a cleaver in his other hand, and the body is right below him. And it came out this week, and the NCAA was like, no, we don't have enough. This is yet another, you already know that when it comes to paying recruits and name, image, and likeness and promising them money, this has been going on for 2 years now. And nobody's been caught. Nobody. Not one school has been caught. The couple girls, the twin girls from Miami, there were some pictures of something. I don't know. What did they have? Something happened with, Miami basketball or something, women's basketball, but no football teams have been. So, why? Why would you think that anything is going to be any different? You don't, there's no penalty for breaking the rule. They can't do anything about it. What's the you can come up with a lot of different analogies, but I, I always like going with the speeding one. Like everybody's speeding and nobody's getting pulled over, so you feel like you're going to speed a little bit more. It would feel like if you were a crossing, a police officer who was supposed to give tickets for people crossing illegally, like at a football game, and then there were like 1,000 people that all crossed, and like, what are you going to do? Like, just throw your buck up in the air. But it's just happening again. The coach on a Tuesday, he finds it. He has taken time out of his busy day of breaking down what Ohio State media is saying about their team to give us the lowdown on what's happening with Michigan. Did I just see Hassan Haskins running in the background? No, this would be, what do we got here? Oh, we have a game that I have not gone back actually and watched in its entirety. And I normally don't put this one up in the background just because it is a loss. This is the semifinal from last year. Look at 21-3. And there's the one-arm bandit off to the sideline. Look at that. 21-3. Remember how I was thinking, what I was thinking? I was thinking Michigan's a second half team. Things couldn't have gone any worse for them. That's what was going on, not Hassan Haskins. John saying Hassan Haskins still scoring touchdowns against Ohio State to this day. Well, back in 2021, the 42-27 victory, Hassan Haskins had almost 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. Wait, no, he didn't have the Michigan ran for almost 300 yards. Haskins had 169 yards and 5 touchdowns. Nice. And shout outs from everywhere. Bristol, Tennessee. What's up, Wes? What's going on? Scott is already declaring that Beasley is a Wolverine. All right. If I had to make a pick, I would say that is true as well. Bristol, this is out like an ESPN country where Steven is jumping in from. Scott wants to know if we can get a 50 forecast for Beasley. Done. I have one I only have one forecast. Rivals, our team, they do future casts. I do forecasts myself. And I have one out for Jacob Smith, Gerard Smith's twin brother, who this past weekend, I believe, was in Ann Arbor. Josh Henschke has posted a few times about Jacob is adamant that, just because they're twins, that he might want to blaze his own trail and that kind of stuff. So we'll see. But, I still feel like that twin poll is going to happen. And Beasley, you got it, Scott. I think Jeremiah Beasley will pick Michigan coming up on Thursday. Everything that I have been able to come up with, everything is pointing to the Maize and Blue. Now, he is down in Missouri, so you never know. That last shot, we'll see. Richard thinks that Beasley needs the weight room for a year. That's fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with redshirting. That's what AJ, he's talking about Missouri. NIL rumor. They got a hell of an NIL going on down there. Scott talking about Missouri's facilities. John coming back, and he thinks Jordan Shipp is going to pick Michigan. I kind of feel like Michigan's got a pretty good chance. So that's it. AJ is not worried about space. Some of these guys are going to walk on, and it makes it virtually limitless. And then NIL is paying for it. Let's go. Jason, I don't know where he gets his percentages from, but now he's got a 79%. Jason, this is a little, what is it? It's a pet peeve of mine. I've worked with a few people as co-hosts in sports radio over the years, and you will get to projecting and percentages, and like be at a game and somebody will say, how many of the opposing fans are there? And I would say, well, it looks like about 25%. And then I had this guy that I was working for. He would always say something like, I think it's 28.7%. And I would say, why not why make a weird guess like that? Why not, give people I'm not saying that you're weird or anything and I don't know where you get your percentages from. Maybe you're just, cooking them up yourself, or maybe it's somebody else. But if it is somebody else, I would say that is a weird percentage. Why not say 80%? That gives you a pretty strong. Saying 79, it's like, here it is. It's inexact. So saying 79 is weird. Now, I worked with Wojo a few times as well. And I don't know if I ever told Wojo, it's like, Wojo's seems like a pretty smart guy and a straightforward guy and everything else. He loves Michigan. And then over the last 2 years, I can recall reading something from him, and he was like, it's 26.7%. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't do any good for anybody. But I don't know. That's just a pet peeve of mine. It just reminded myself with the 79% for Ship going to Michigan. Just say 80%, Jason. Let's do it. Let's round it up. 79%. Make somebody sound like they think they're knowing what they're talking about. Maybe it's you, Jason. I would say if it is you and you're cooking up the numbers, just make it 80%. 79 is getting a little bit too cute when it comes down to it. Here's one of those corners I was talking about. Grimsley. Victor saying he really enjoyed his trip. He would be a nice pairing with Scott at corner. Yeah, he would. And Michigan is in with a chance with him. So I think that that is one of those guys. Jason, Mayo wasn't a loss. Childs was, though. Jason says he took the bag. Yeah. Players are taking money and nobody cares. And nobody's doing anything about it. So you can give money to players now, and even though it's technically against the rules, nobody's doing anything about it. And so we've been down this road a million times. If you want some of those top guys, they are going to get, and I've said it before, I think that, that Michigan's going to lose out on some of that signing bonus. Their business plan is not to do that. And it could, wreak havoc with the rest of the team. Not that I see it that way. I think they should pick and choose and pay some of the players up front. But, Michigan's, I have a hard time criticizing them because things are going so well. And like this year's NLI is an absolute grand slam for them. And it was only last year that I was critical of the admissions and how they were going to fall behind because of the transfer portal. And then it came out and hit a grand slam of the transfer portal. So, me criticizing them, saying that they should go and pick and choose and pay some players if they want to get some of these top guys, it's still how I feel. So, but with that, I could understand how if it would be somebody that was involved over at Michigan, they'd be rolling their eyes and saying, hey, we're doing pretty good. Why don't you back off criticizing us? But I don't have many criticisms of you. In fact, and I usually do, like previous to these last 2 years, there was always something. Beat Ohio State. That was a big one for me. But right now, I don't have any. Losing to TCU, I guess. Let's see. You shouldn't have lost to TCU. There's another criticism for you. How about that? But they all know that too. They agree with that one. Let's see what Don has to say. He's talking about NIL. What if you use NIL money to cover until a scholarship opens up till next year, since we would probably be losing 16 just to the draft? Yeah, I'm all for it, but that sounds like, what's the difference? You tell me. If I promise you $100,000 through name, image, and likeness after signing day, you'll be able to get that from Michigan. What's the difference between saying that and saying, hey, we will pay for your school once a scholarship opens up, or you will get, you're promising a scholarship when it opens up if you're going above and then here you're promising money. You could say, yeah, because it's technically against the rules. Okay, that's it. Yeah, like I said, Notre Dame, let's go back. How do Notre Dame fans feel? If a player is interested and they want him, then he's leaning towards Notre Dame. So that's how they think about everyone. That's Notre Dame. That's how it works. They think that, when they look over and they see, Jesus painted on the wall, that, that they've got help coming in that other teams don't from up high. That's how Notre Dame fans feel. I basically just stay away. Go ahead, Notre Dame. Here's another one of those corners that I talked about. If it's not Scott and it's not Grimsley, well, maybe it'll be Terrion Nichols. Because Jason is saying he heard that he liked his official visit. Yeah, and look, who's to say that Nichols or Grimsley is not better than Scott to begin with? These guys are all they seem like they're all pretty much up there. At least what I've been able to determine when it comes to, I haven't broken down the film or actually watched these guys, just talking about looking at their rankings and ratings. They kind of all seem like they are right there. All right, a couple more on the feedback, and then we're going to take the turn to talk about the football team. AJ doesn't want people to worry about rankings. Would you rather be Ohio State with a lopsided class of all receivers and no defense? Ohio State is fishing for defense now, and it is hard for them. Yep. Well, Antoine, I know that you're following Ohio State, and that if there's any crack to take a shot at him, you will. And I'm all for it. So I like your breakdown, and I think you're right about it. Scott wants to know what everyone thought about Jet Howard going number 11 in the draft. I did not think it was a surprise. I think Jet Howard has got an NBA game. I think Jet Howard has an NBA skill set. I think you can throw it over to Jet Howard and he's instant offense. I think you can throw it over to Jet Howard. He can crank up a three all day long. I think he can get his own shot. I think he's got every step back, side shuffle move that I watch in the NBA, that all of these guys, he reminded me of Jeremy Grant, who played for the Pistons and went to Portland the first time that I saw him. And he has the moves like that. Jamal Crawford, the former Wolverine, who went a little bit higher. He played nearly 20 years in the NBA. Jet Howard, his game reminded me of Crawford. So it's not a surprise to me. And, there was a couple people like, well, he doesn't play defense and he's only a, volume shooter. Well, what's the NBA? You're looking for guys that can score. Volume shooter is a good thing if you're bringing somebody in, if you make enough. And, defense, defense is a lot about effort. And, you can coach that. Now, you can get that out of a guy. Give me a guy with a great offensive skill set bag, and I will work on those fundamentals and defense. So, not a surprise to me where he ended up going. So that's it. Okay. We got a lot going on Here, Wesley says, if you combine the portal from last year with Michigan's recruiting ranking, then you'd end up being top 10 from 5 to 10. And I think that's true. I think that's true, Wes, and that's a fine way. And I think you should look at it like that. And that's what I think when it comes down. And I think Michigan, I have not sat in their name, image, and likeness and transfer portal and how they're going about, giving money or promising money, all those kind of things. But I think their idea is these top guys, once it comes around again, they'll be able to score them in the transfer portal. And would you rather give 100,000 and promise it to a guy that's 17 years old who can then take off as soon as he gets the money, or after somebody's been through it, come back and get him on the second time through? And I think that's Michigan's approach, and that is something to take a look at. Let's see. Richard says somebody in the Ohio media ranked Dono ahead of Corum as the best back in the Big Ten. Well, that's a little outside the box because Corum, had such a great year. I'll take your word for it, Richard. If you're asking me, like, who has the more NFL ready type game, or who I think would get drafted higher in the NFL, I think I would take the one-armed bandit in front of Blake Corum, and I love Blake Corum, but you know me, I think that Corum is the number one back in the country, and I think Donovan Edwards is number two. I really like Donovan Edwards. You can make a case that Donovan Edwards is the best back in the country. So I don't know exactly what that Ohio media member was thinking, smoking, chewing, whatever, but he may be right. P. Maximus with an interesting point. The Scott recruiting battle between ND and U of M should be interesting since Mike Elston was the defensive line coach. So that's a pretty good one. Gary, bottom lining recruiting right now, saying Michigan is recruiting like champs. That's right. They are. Joel saying, when I say silent, I mean they're whispers leaking out from some of the sources. Yeah, where your silent commitment is only as good as who you're whispering to. Yeah, I like silent. I like silent commitments. I like talking about them, and then I like speculating about them. What I really like is, and this is what I've enjoyed about Josh Henschke, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review. Like when it comes down to I see some of the other gurus. Sometimes it's okay as a guru to be like, I don't know, or I don't really believe in silence, or just go on the information that, you have through a source. There's a lot of these gurus that just can't accept that they might not know something. And look, there's a lot of fabulous that these guys can work their tail off and they can be in the business for years, but they might not know every single thing about everyone. And then you hear them and they act like they know. And it's a little bit like, it's okay to be like, you don't know everything that there is to know about recruiting. And once in a while, to me, that validates you more to say, I'm not sure. When I see some of these guys that, they act like they know everything about everything. No, you don't. And it stands out that you've been like that for years. All right. Colston Loveland. But boy, I'm falling behind here because there's a lot. Here's OT. Loveland's old head coach is Bear's new head coach. I didn't know that. Victor saying the same thing. Well, that sounds like it would be a good thing for Michigan, right? Wesley pointing out that Michigan has somebody that was on a mission and then joined Michigan last year, Andrew Gentry. You are correct about that. Here is the poster formerly known as Andres. No show yesterday. Where you been, Andres? I was golfing. No, I wasn't. It was weather related. Let's see. You know how I feel about that. Yeah, the problem about making jokes about the cheeseburger is that while the other schools, so you could say they're mountains, and Michigan is getting hit with the molehills, they are getting hit with things that they got somebody turned them in about, and they actually have some evidence. So it's one of those things like, hey, we can actually go at Michigan. This is the NCAA. Like, we can actually go at Michigan because we do have, even though it's small potatoes, we actually do have some receipts on them, and we can hit them. No, maybe not. Maybe, Harbaugh, when he said, hey, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And Harbaugh was like, no, I can't tell you more about that. Why don't you guys all go to hell? That was basically what he said. And so, and then all of the, Michigan slaps were like, this is about a hamburger. Well, it wasn't. But, the critics would say that everybody's doing the one cheating. Is everybody just doing all the cheating, or Michigan's doing selective cheating, or just Michigan got caught, or it's not that big of a deal that Michigan was making illegal contact during the pandemic? The pandemic was a joke. And I mean, you can excuse it any way you want. Oh, there is a part about it. Like, the NCAA, they can't enforce anything of all of the big things that are going on. And yet they're going to sit around and hit Michigan for these small potatoes. And so that's where the burger jokes come from. So that's it. If the poster formerly known as Andres doesn't know it, we do have a forecast in for Beasley. That happened today. My hand was forced a little bit. I'm in there. Antoine had to step away. What did he miss? Antoine, we've been just talking about recruiting and giving shout outs. People like John, who's getting in late. It was like, what's up? And here's Mark, who's one of our favorites. It's Tuesday. No, it just happened because of the weather. And we'll be back tomorrow. The Big Ten should divvy out the surplus TV revenue to each school specifically for NIL to improve the on-field product depth. Let me go through that one a little bit. The Big Ten should divvy out when you say surplus, so each school, what do they end up getting? 70? Is it up to like 75 million that each Big Ten school is getting? And so when we see the Big Ten network want to do certain things, they really paid for it. I think it is. I don't know. That's my guess. It was 50. And so I think it's up to 75 million. So they should have take some of that money and specifically give it to the players. Well, there's nobody that's stopping them, right? I mean, like, you could filter that money any way you want. Like, you have that money. This is always the coming out of the thing. Like, Michigan wants that money for themselves. Like, who wouldn't? It's their money. Michigan wants you and other donors and other fans to reach into their pocket. And they want you to pay for it. That's their money. That's their millions that they're cashing in on. Somebody along the line, and I thought Michigan for a while, with all these different NIL, and maybe it'll still happen, somebody is going to score an additional TV or where they're going to have, and I know these guys do some radio and they do some TV, but there's so much more that they could do there where they could make more money doing that. And I thought they were going to get with some entertainment, but maybe that locked in with the Big Ten Network and their TV contracts. And so, maybe that's why they were blocked for that. But this is interesting, and we could talk about it all day about the TV revenue that they're getting. And why don't they give it to the players? They don't want to give it to the players. They want to keep all that money for themselves, basically, is how that's going. Jason's talking about, let's get some tacos. It is a Tuesday. I'm all for that. JP talking about getting that gray shirt process going until a scholarship opens up via academic attrition and the transfer portal, not NIL. There are ways around NIL. Yeah, gray shirts have been around for a million years, or I'd say a million years. They've been around. I remember Michigan's last championship quarterback was not only a walk-on, but he was a preferred walk-on gray shirt. Brian Greasy, I think technically, who was just in Ann Arbor last week, was a gray shirt. Steph Curry, let's ask him about defense. The portal hurts you now. It can help you. Joel, have you ever heard of anybody not having a great visit at Michigan? Right. Trevor says, screw Ohio State and their media. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm there. Roger is saying that USC is moving past Michigan today on the recruiting rankings. Well, that doesn't surprise me. Like USC, what they're doing out there. I only say things when USC is brought up in a chat troll. Well, look, USC is approaching recruiting differently than Michigan. USC is using the bright lights and the money and the jewelry and the cars and they're using bling. And they're saying our offense is as good as offenses in the NFL. And I think they're right about that. And I think it's like, it's Hollywood, it's LA, it's palm trees, it's money, it's women, it's weather. That's what USC is. Now they don't play defense, and those guys are going to leave after a year or two. But it's ritzy, it's show business. It's hard to compete with that unless it's defense. That's what's going on. Lewis G with a question. Do I think Mike Hart is reaching out to Tatum since Gash had to leave from his knee injury? Why wouldn't Tatum compete for a starting time at running back? Yeah, I think Taylor Tatum went out to California and drove around in a USC Bentley, and somebody gave him a big gold chain with diamonds in it, and then said, hey, let's go down and look at the mountains, and let's look at the baseball field, and this is the weather, and here's the women, and look at all these bikinis, and here's a suitcase of cash, and you can play football, and you can play baseball. Or then they showed him a picture of a Michigan winner. You can say you can go and go to Michigan. I told everybody when you guys were all like, he's a lock, and there's every forecast and future cast and every other kind of cast for Tatum. I warned people like, Texas guys that really want to play baseball. Yeah, Gash has no effect on Tatum. Cash, not gash, in the warm weather. I'm speculating about the money, but at USC, we know that they paid Jordan Addison to go into the transfer portal a couple million to come from Pitt. Remember that? And they're like, wait a second, he's not even in the transfer portal yet. And then the following week, like he was. And then he did go to USC. So the evidence is there that USC is offering you, they're promising you money, like everybody else is. And, they do have the weather. Well, the Notre Dame talk. It seems that Notre Dame will have to join a conference. So do I think it's unlikely or not that ND joins the Big Ten? Not to avoid your question, C. Faust, but it's one of these that I've talked about for 30 years, and that I don't think that they are going to have to. I think that they will continue to be the lone wolf. They will sit out there. It might be the Big Ten, the SEC, and Notre Dame. You say, well, who will they play? They'll play all the teams from the Big Ten and the SEC. They'll figure it out. They, and part of me thinks that if it did come down to the Big Ten and SEC, that they'd go to the SEC because they just, they can't stand sharing things with people in the Midwest. They, I don't think it's going to happen. I know everybody's, is pointing to it's going to happen for sure, but I think to hell with them. And I hope it all backfires. But I do hope we get to see them in 2033 at Michigan Stadium. But until then, I don't really care. Not to, like I said, avoid your question or anything, but sometimes it's a little bit too much Notre Dame talk. Sorry for you getting there late. Trevor's like, where's the memorabilia in the background? Well, this is open for somebody. I'm gonna get somebody up there. I've got more memorabilia. I cleaned up the background a little bit. There'll be something up there. I mean, there's space for your business to be up there. Blank name, what is the Georgia specific drill? Well, when it comes to football teams and the different periods that they have during practice, they will dedicate a portion of the practice and they might name one of the drills. For example, the Ohio State drill. And because Michigan has their eyes on the prize of playing for a national championship, they have, it wouldn't surprise me if they put in a Georgia specific drill. It is to keep the dogs in your mind and keep everything top of mind that, hey, Michigan is not just, playing to win the Big Ten. Michigan is not just playing to get to the semifinals. They are playing to take out the very top dog. And that top dog is Georgia. So that is what's going on. I would also say that they should maybe put in a TCU drill. And maybe that would be one about, maybe, I don't know. With that'd be kind of trolling your quarterback. All right, McCarthy, we're going to throw these opposite hash throws to these wide receivers. Let's call this the TCU drill. No pick sixes. No, they shouldn't do that. They don't need a TCU drill. A Georgia drill works just fine. But speaking of that, I mentioned that I was listening to a college football pod yesterday, and they had three guys on there, and they said, "Hey, before we go, let's pick our early college football semifinals." And I listened to two of them, then I turned it off. But the first two guys that went up there, both of them picked Michigan. There's a lot of people that are picking Michigan to get back to the college football playoffs. And, I was on the Maize and Blue review over the weekend, and there were some people like, it's too early to talk about Michigan, getting to the college football playoffs. This is too. And then there were a lot of people like, oh, it's so difficult. Then there were other people like, I don't like Michigan being, ranked this high, or I don't like Michigan talking about winning the championship. Like, this is all putting the cart in front of the horse. To all of that, I say, I understand, but you just have to realize the kind of team that Michigan has. Michigan has, and it's not been like this, I don't want to say ever, but in the 21st century, it hasn't been like this. Most of the time, you'd look at Alabama and Georgia, and you'd say, it was like from Georgia 2 years ago. Like, that team had way more talent than Michigan. Michigan, they really didn't have a chance, a small chance against them. But the talent, because of the name, image, and likeness that Michigan brings back on their offensive line, at running back, on defense, what they were able to do in the transfer portal, Michigan has as much or more talent than anybody in the country, and that includes Georgia, and that's when it includes Alabama, and it includes Ohio State. That's why people are picking Michigan to win it all, to be in the championship game, to be in the semifinal, to beat Ohio State again. All of those things, like, I get being like, oh, I like Michigan being the underdog more. Well, forget it. They've got everything. They have the talent, and they've been there. They've got to handle that. And, part of that, all of that, they have to deal with it. But even Harbaugh, if you remember, what did he do last year when he was in Indianapolis? He went up to the podium, and remember in years past, coaches would be like, our focus, we have our goals, they're all internal goals, and we want to win the Big Ten. Everybody's like, oh, okay. That's not what Harbaugh did last year. Harbaugh said that he wanted to beat his rivals. He wanted to win the Big Ten, and he wanted to win the national championship. Well, he fell short of this last one. Those were the goals last year. This year, the goals are the same. Or you could say that it's even more. Winning the national championship. Michigan wants to win the national championship. That's their goal. Harbaugh was asked specifically about it this offseason. And what did he say? Quote, fate is in our hands. I firmly believe we have the license and ability to do it. My guess is that, and I'll put it at minus 250, when Harbaugh is in Indianapolis, or I'm sorry, Chicago. Did I say Indianapolis? When he is in Chicago at the Big Ten coaches meetings and he is asked about Michigan going back to the college football playoff or winning it all, he is going to say, I believe we have the license and ability to do it. Fate is in our hands. He rolls out what he believes, and he'll say it again. He is going to say this coming up in about a month. Fate is in our hands. I believe we have the license and ability to do it. Michigan's in a good spot. They haven't been in a spot like this. They're going to be, Georgia should be the number one team in the country. Michigan should be the number 2 team in the country. Michigan should get to the college football championship game. Michigan obviously then should get back to the college football playoffs, and they should beat Georgia, and they should win the Big Ten. All of that should happen. That's the kind of season it is. Enjoy it. And all this recruiting, yeah, Michigan's 2 in recruiting. They should stay in the top 4. They should do everything inside the top 5 right now. That's where they're at. That's what they're doing. Level 1, I'm going to say 30. He's asking how many recruits he thinks Michigan will end up at. I'm going to say 30. That's what I think. Yeah, that's it. USC is going back to the Reggie Bush era. USC has never changed from the Reggie Bush era. USC has always. Here's some of the, and look, do you think USC fans care? No, they don't care. Just like none of the other, it didn't seem like the Big Ten, for the Big Ten, like, hey, it's all about academics and we want our student athletes. Let's bring in 2 schools. One that gave Dante Moore a bunch of promises and we're able to get him from Oregon, who was obviously offering him money. And then USC, there's not a team out there that has crossed the line when it comes to paying players, NIL promises, and before NIL, there's not a bigger team that has opened up the checkbook or given illegal money than the Trojans. And the Big Ten said, these are the 2 teams we're bringing in. I just say that when people are like, look at it, all of the teams except Michigan and a few others, they're going this route. That can make it difficult. That's why Michigan needs to keep winning and keep doing what they're doing, because what they're doing a good job. Oh, Tatum's now going to Oklahoma. Is that right? I thought he was going to USC. So he's already flipped. I could be wrong. Let's see. See if anybody else. Oh, people talking about the assistants. Let's say I could stay here all day. Here's a top 5 from Jason: Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, USC. I'm going to, even though Oregon has to go to USC, I'm not sorry, Washington. I am going to pick Washington to be in my college football playoff. I'm a big fan of Michael Penix Jr. and I like Florida State, but I was looking at their schedule. Don't they have to go to Florida? And don't who they play in the night? They play a tough non-conference game as well. So I like Florida State, but I think they are not going to be there. I like Georgia. I like Michigan. I like Washington. And I'm not going to pick somebody from the Big 12. I'm not going to pick somebody from the ACC. So I'm going to double up. I think it's going to be bad. I was going to say it's going to, you can pick 5. No, you can only pick 4. Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and then it's either going to come down to Ohio State or Alabama. And let's face it, I hate Ohio State, so I'm going to pick Alabama. My college football playoff teams right now: Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Alabama. That is how I think it's going to play out. Florida State, too tough of a schedule. Good team. I just think they're going to drop some games early, and it's going to be Alabama in front of them. Thanks so much. Tomorrow, Jim Scarcelli is going to join us. I've got one more thing that I wanted to point out, and I saw this just before coming out. It comes from the Michigan hockey program, and Matty Beniers is your 23 NHL Calder Trophy winner. That goes to the Rookie of the Year. So congratulations to the Seattle Kraken's Matty Beniers. Nice job. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue. Thanks for those 5-star ratings on the podcast. Leave those comments. And I love when you give the thumbs up even on the YouTube when you're listening to us. Till tomorrow. So long, everybody.